Introduce you all to FIU in Washington, D.C., especially on behalf of our university president, our board of trustees. We are very happy to have you here. And you might be wondering, what is FIU? What is Florida International University? We are a top 50 public university with Miami ties and Miami strengths. As you could see from the video that we showed, we talk a lot about health, chronic diseases, cancer and brain health research. You'll see our cubbies outside that depict some of that. So hopefully after this program, you'll take a chance to take a little quick tour. We talk environmental research, Everglades in particular, and water quality coming from South Florida and living on the water. Technology in particular, we're looking at cybersecurity, our antennas, and our additive manufacturing, which we all, again, have examples of right outside in our cubbies. So you might wonder, why Washington, D.C.? Well, we are one of the few universities that have active classes here in Washington, D.C., but we also have taken big time here. We want to also talk about our talent lab. So my name is Michelle Castro. I serve as the director for student experiences and impact. And I get the pleasure of working with students who are interested and have an interest here in Washington, D.C. about interning, about getting jobs, about living in Washington, D.C. And we have different programs. And today, in particular, we have 10 law student cohort, if they'll stand for a second or wave their hands.
Law.
These students have joined us today because they have an interest in the law, but also in living here in Washington, D.C. And today they had the opportunity to go to the Department of Justice, to a private law firm, also to meet with our honorable judge, who you'll get to know more about in a little bit, but also to experience what it is and to talk to the Supreme Court's honors program. And we do that intentionally. We have about 25 academic fly-ins in an academic year, where we bring up 15 to 20 students to experience very similar fly-ins on many of our different topics, including health, environmental resiliency, technology, because we want them to experience a very curated experience with experts here in Washington, D.C., so they can see themselves. So again, we are excited to have another Becerra with us today. I get the honor and pleasure of working with her cousin, but it is great to have another one in the room and as part of our family. So welcome, and we're happy that you were able to join us. We also are happy to have the Hispanic National Bar Foundation leadership present with us and all the students that are participating in their legal camp. So welcome, we're excited that you're here. Some interns from the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute from their law fellows that are in the back, I see. Retired general counsel, is EC? Not yet here. But an FIU retired general counsel, Isis Carbajal.
She's coming?
Yes. Craig Lean from KL Gates, former appointee at Department of Labor and former FIU adjunct. Who's not here yet, Charlene Stanbury, another FIU proud law alumna and also an adjunct faculty member. And then hopefully Courtney will join us as well. But my opportunity now is to introduce one of our students here that is interning for the Honorable Judge Contreras, Nicholas Caleno. And he'll come up and introduce himself and also talk to you a little bit about what he's doing here and the rest of our program. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Nick Calero and I'm currently interning with Judge Contreras here at the DC District Courthouse. And basically this summer I've been tasked with site checking and writing opinions. So it'll basically go from judge to our clerks. And through this process, we just basically go back and forth, researching and understanding different areas of the law. And once we're done with our opinions and our site checks, we send them back to judge. He goes over them, reviews them, gives us feedback, and then he publishes them. I have the honor of introducing Judge Becerra. She's the daughter of Cuban immigrants, which led her path down to Miami. In Miami, she went to undergrad at the University of Miami, and after, went to Yale Law School. At Yale Law School, she was a recipient of the John Fletcher Kasky Prize for her presentation in the final round of the law school's mock trial competition. After law school, she bounced around both public and private sector, which ultimately led to her being nominated by President Joe Biden to serve as a United States District Court Judge in the Southern District of Florida. Without further ado, I have the honor and the privilege to introduce Judge Becerra.
You can seat.
Want me to just take
Sit
my
in the
seat?
yeah,
Yes.
in the center.
Thank you for having me. That was a good introduction.
Thank you. It's all in the notes.
I like when people mention the prize. I don't know why I like that prize so much. So I had a law clerk who was looking at my resume that I had to submit for my nomination. And she's like, Judge, this is like some law school prize. You got to get rid of this. I almost fired her. I love that prize. You can't get rid of that prize. So thank you.
No problem. So to start, I've mentioned that you both bounced around private and public sector. But before starting off with that, what was your interest in law and why did you want to begin in the first place?
So I was mentioning to some folks this morning, some of it just happened organically, right? I tell folks I was a very happy lawyer for many years because I wasn't like a frustrated doctor or architect or singer or dancer because I couldn't have done any of those things. I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't paint, and I wasn't any good at math. So like, what was I supposed to do, right? So some of it was my natural, the things I was good at sort of kind of pointed me to the law. And I only half joke because this is true. I have an older sister who was just always getting in trouble with my parents, and I would come to her rescue. And my parents would be like, you know, cállate, you're not a lawyer. You're not your sister's lawyer. And I'm like, I'm going to be a lawyer. You just watch. And so, you know, my mom, I think, would have been a lawyer had the revolution not happened. And I think she wanted it for me too, right? The sense that there had been something like stolen from us at some point. And so she was very supportive. My grandfather was incredibly supportive of me being a lawyer, and sort of I was encouraged, right, to do it. And I was telling the law students a little while ago, if I could go back and be a first year right now, I'd do it. I love law school. You're looking at me like I'm a little crazy, but I loved law school. I loved law school, so.
Perfect. To kind of build off that, you had mentioned your love for the law started off very young, and we have a lot of high school students here. So what would you recommend to them if they want to get into law or public service? Where should they start?
So this is a little bit of just the way I think of life in general, and certainly a career advice too. Don't worry so much about it, right? Don't worry so much about it. Do things you really enjoy to do, right? Don't worry that this internship will look better than that internship, or I got to do this program, or I got to take this class. Do things you really love to do. Excel at things, right? Do things that you're good at. Work hard. It'll all come together, right? It'll all come together. If you love the law, there's so many things you could do. Like I was a high school debater. Something else I'm very proud of, actually. So I was a high school debater, but there are people who did, you know, mock trial. There are people who did, what is that, like there was a thing like mock, there's moot court, but there's something else that kids in high school do, like Model UN, right? Then there are people, you know, the newspaper, right? You're going to have to write a lot and write well if you're a lawyer, right? So maybe it's the newspaper. There's so many different things that you can do that are going to lead you and support you if you choose to be a lawyer. So just do something you really love. Don't worry about it so much. You don't have to be a high school debater. You don't have to do mock trial, right? You could do the paper, right? You could do something different. You could play a sport. I'll tell you, competing in a sport, right? If you're an athlete, that's going to be incredibly valuable to you, right? There's just so many different things that'll play into a great law career. So don't worry about it so much. Have some fun. Do something you love.
Awesome. I know we had mentioned it before in the meeting room, but we also have law students here. So with your background, both private and public sector, what kind of shaped the way you view the justice system, and how does that affect you now in your day-to-day life?
Well, so I think as certainly growing up as the daughter of immigrants, you know, it was very much, you know, part of what we believed in as a family, right? That this was the greatest democracy on earth, right? The belief that our Constitution was great, that our laws were great, that we were part of a democracy that had given my family every opportunity we had in literally our lives, right? So that was kind of the undertone of everything I did, you know, as I was a kid. Once I got into law school, obviously I graduated from law school and I went to the Justice Department, that fundamentally changed the way I saw the law, and I've seen the rest of my career, because I worked with some of the smartest people I've ever met, with a common mission, right? When you work at the Justice Department, you wake up every day and you do what is right. Like, that's what the job was, right? I can't speak to what it is now because obviously that's not the job I have. But for the 10 years that I was there, I know what job I had. And I had 3 different jobs, or actually 4, because I was at Main Justice for a little while doing civil litigation. You all were at DOJ today, right? I did a civil litigation there. And then I was an assistant United States attorney. I was a federal prosecutor here in the district. I was a federal prosecutor in Miami. And then I was counsel to the U.S. attorney. So I was like the U.S. attorney's like right-hand person, right? The crisis manager, if you will, for the office. Did a lot of different things. But in every one of those jobs, really, I had the same job, which is to do what I thought was right. And I'll tell you, it's very different than my job now, because I tell people that my job now is really not to do what's right. My job is to follow the law. And sometimes, I'm sure you'll agree with me, I don't agree with it, and I still got to do it. So it's a little different even now. But when I was a justice, that sense of having the enormous power, because people who work at the Justice Department obviously have enormous amounts of power, that I was there to do what was right, absolutely changed, right? The way I saw the government, the way I still see the government. I have an enormous respect for public servants, not only because I was one for a decade, but I met so many brilliant people who were really dedicating their lives, right, to the common good of our democracy. And so I have it just amplified the respect I already had for our government.
Perfect. So sticking with the topic of all the different roles you've held, which one was your favorite and why? If you're allowed to answer that.
Doesn't the judge have to say this one?
This one's pretty special. I'm not going to say this one is pretty special. It's really hard for me to say what my favorite job was. I'll tell you, the very first job I had at the Justice Department, every time there was a going away party, people would say how it was the best job they ever had. And I thought, this is my first job. Like, is it going to be downhill from here? It was not downhill from there, but that first job I had at Main Justice was so exciting because I was at Main Justice and I was such a young lawyer. And we were given, you get a lot of autonomy when you're a young lawyer at the Justice Department. And so that was just very exciting. I loved being a prosecutor here in the district. So I was a street prosecutor, right? I was doing dime crack bags and solicitation and robberies, and I was doing street crime, because I was here for 2 years, and that was really cool. That was really, really exciting. It was just exciting. It was the kind of stuff you see on Law and Order stuff, right? I was like that. It was fun. I loved that, and I was trying cases, right? Trying cases and juries, and it was just really exciting. But to be a prosecutor in your hometown is also very special and very different, right? So when I went to Miami, I'm not doing robberies and home invasions and carjackings now. Now I was in narcotics and I was doing, more sophisticated wiretaps and transnational drug organizations, and it was a very different kind of practice. But I was home, right? So sort of impacting my community and being part of that community that was me was really very special. So those jobs, those were the government jobs that I had, and they were all so different, and it's like picking your child, right? Like which kid you love best. I love them all. And look, I loved being in private practice. I was in private practice for 15 years, and I loved it. I had a great practice. I was a specialist in the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And so I did investigations. I did do some trial work as well, but I helped American companies, multinational companies, deal with corruption issues, primarily in Latin America, and how to deal with government corruption issues in their businesses. And so I did that for 15 years and absolutely loved that. It was really quite exciting. And then I became a United States magistrate judge, which is different than being a district court judge, but also very exciting because our magistrates, we are the line of the Fourth Amendment, right? Because magistrate judges sign search warrants and arrest warrants. And so those Fourth Amendment calls, right? The first line, of course, is with the magistrate judge. And I like to think that really our magistrate judges are the face of the judiciary. Most litigants will see the magistrate judge probably more than they see the district court judge. And so what lawyers perceive as our judiciary oftentimes is shaped by the work of our United States magistrate judges. I love that job too.
All right, awesome.
I'm just a really big nerd. I think it's probably obvious now, right? I'm a nerd.
So this leads to our final question before we open up to the floor. If you can give yourself, your younger self, advice, what would you give it?
So I will confess I had a heads up that that question was going to be asked. And I'm glad I had that heads up because I've been thinking about it since I got the heads up. So I would have different advice for my high school self than I would for my law school self, right? So my high school self, I would say, have a little more fun, right? Like I'm still friends with the girls I went to elementary school with and high school with. And we were at a party the other day and they were all talking about all these parties they went to in high school that I wasn't at. And I was like, I didn't do that. And they were like, hey, you were at some debate tournament or your mother wouldn't let you go anyway. And I'm like, all our mothers were strict. And so I think the takeaway from that was that all my friends really had a great time in high school and I did not. And they're also very successful. So I think I could have gone to a party or two. It would have been fine. It was probably a little too intense in high school. My law school self, I'd have different advice for. I think by the time I was in law school, you know, I struggled a lot, and I don't think it's necessarily uncommon for women of color. Did I belong? Right? Like, did I belong here? Like, was it an accident that I was here? Did somebody make a mistake? You know, when I was in law school, and so I think I definitely had a lot of that imposter syndrome, which took. Still, some days I have it, believe it or not, but it was a very big part of sort of my psyche when I was in law school. Did I belong there? Right? Was I good enough to be there? So I think I'd tell my law school self, "You're good enough to be here." Right? You're good enough to be here. Stop worrying about whether you're good enough to be here and just do what you need to do. I think I worried about that a lot when I was in law school. So I wish I hadn't. I wish I could take some of that worry and some of that self-doubt away. Because looking back on it now, 30 years later, I just went to my 30th law school reunion. You know, I belonged there. I deserved to be there. It took almost 30 years to convince me of that. I wish it hadn't taken that long.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to open the floor to you guys.
Hello, Judge. My name is Leo. I'm from Texas. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. My name is Leo. I'm from Texas. I'm going to college in the fall. I'm planning. I would like to go to law school. I know you mentioned imposter syndrome. Columbia. Thank you.
Florida State.
Somebody has to go there, I guess.
Really excited for New York City. I know you mentioned imposter syndrome. When I look forward to my college experience, I feel that's going to be a big issue. I was wondering, you know, how you dealt with it and how you approached, you know?
So let me just tell you one thing. The Columbia admissions process, they don't make mistakes. They don't. They don't, right? So they didn't, you're not there as a mistake. Like they wanted you there because you belong there. And so you need to believe that because it's true. So I know it's true because I've got 35 years ahead of you in the process and I'm looking back on it. I can tell you they didn't make a mistake, right? So when you're there, the best way to work it through is don't limit yourself. Like every opportunity that is available there is available to all. And so don't shortchange yourself. Don't edit the things that you do and the things you choose to do because you think maybe it's not right for you. If it's there, if it's an opportunity for a Columbia student, it's an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for you. So don't edit it. Don't edit those experiences. That's what I would say to you. Congratulations. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Chloe. I'm also from Miami. I was wondering, what drew you to the prosecuting side of the law rather than being the defense, and what drew you to be working in litigation specifically?
So I think litigation, the spark of litigation began with the Kasky Prize. It began with the law school competition, and I loved the law school competition. I had been a high school debater, so I loved that part of it. That first job I had was not, even though I was a litigator in title, we didn't really try cases at federal programs. My boss told me one day, no, if you're trying a case, something went wrong, right? We think big thoughts and we settle things on the papers here. We don't try cases. And when I had that job and my boss told me that, I'm like, oh no, I want to be trying cases. Like I want to be in the mix. And so that supervisor of mine said, oh, if you want to try cases, just go down the street. And he meant it literally because federal programs was on 5th and E and the U.S. Attorney's Office was at the Triple Nickel. It still is. And it was literally like down the street. Did it move? Where is it now? Oh, it was the Triple Nickel back then. Remember? So anyway, so he literally like pointed out the window and said, you got to work over there. And so I thought, let me give it a try. Let me give litigation a try. And so that's how I became a prosecutor. I have an enormous amount of respect for criminal defense lawyers. I think I did some defense work in private practice. I think my personality, if you will, was better suited for being a prosecutor. I think prosecutors have an obligation to look at all the sides, right? And to do justice, considering that really their foremost obligation is to the defendant as well. Whereas defense lawyers, their obligation is more unique, right? They have an obligation to do the best interest for their client, and their client is that guy or that gal sitting there. So it sort of happened by chance, but I think it was also a better fit maybe for me in terms of my personality. But I have a lot of respect for defense lawyers. I like to think we have the best public defender's office in the country. I think DC argues with me about that, but that's okay. That's okay.
A lot of questions.
Hi, my name is Romina. I'm from Los Angeles. And as someone who also comes from immigrant parents and plans on going to law school, how did you go about studying for the LSAT and your law school application when you don't have anyone to personally turn to who has gone through that process?
So not only did I not have anybody to turn to, I don't think my parents had any clue like what the LSAT was or anything like that, right? You're going to have to find for yourself, right? You're going to have to create that village for yourself of people who've been through the process, right? And so it might be a professor in school, it might be an internship that you're in. You have a lot more resources than we did because you got your phones, right? You got the Google people, and you have those resources to learn. But just remember that, like, when the door closes and you're sitting doing the LSAT, you're the only person doing it. The person next to you, whose mother also took the LSAT, she didn't bring her along, right? At the end of the day, you're taking the LSAT by yourself the way they are too. So sure, it's nice to have somebody to walk you through these and to make it a little easier for you. Sure, it makes it a little easier for you. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to sit in a chair and do it on their own.
Judge, to interrupt, I am the interim dean at FIU Law. Woo! I don't need the mic. You can hear me. And back in, I don't know the year, but for the last 9 years, I started a pre-law program for first-generation students. We offer them a free LSAT prep. You are matched with a consultant during the time that you're applying for law school and they go through your application. So when you all are ready to, we have some folks that may be in the program. They're graduating as a law student now. So when you're ready to, in your last year of law school, assuming that the program's still running, which it will be, you should reach out to us, and we offer it online, so it doesn't matter what law school.
That's amazing.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. As a Cuban immigrant who's also a high school debater from South Florida, it means a lot.
What's your event?
Like you. Congress.
Okay. I was a Lincoln Douglas debater.
I think all the high school debaters will agree on a little rivalry going on. But either way, thank you so much. I am also a rising freshman. I just graduated. So I wanted to ask you, as someone from South Florida, it's a very special community. The Cuban community as well. How those community kind of influence you in your work here today and throughout your legal career?
So I used to tell folks when I was in private practice, I used to tell my clients, I'm not bilingual, I'm bicultural, right? So I speak 2 languages, but anybody can speak 2 and 3 languages, right? I was more than just somebody who spoke 2 languages. I was somebody who understood the world in 2 different ways, right? Because I understood it as an American, because I feel very American, obviously. But I also understood the world as a Cuban American, right? Because I was also learning about the world through my parents' view right, who were immigrants. So I've always sort of gone through life, right, with two bodies, right, two ways of thinking, right? The way my community sees the world and the way Americans see the world, because like I said, I feel very American. I think it's been pivotal to my success as a lawyer, because when I look at things, I think I have the ability to empathize and understand things in multiple ways without bias that one way is naturally better than the other, right? Like I can understand that your opinion is different than mine and that you hold it as sacredly and as genuinely as I do mine, and that yours isn't more important than mine and vice versa. Because I lived the world, right, in with two hats. So I'm sure for those of you who are bilingual, don't you sometimes you're trying to say something in Spanish and you just can't find the word, right? Because the Spanish word doesn't exist. It's more often the other side, right? That you're trying to say something in English, but you know the word in Spanish, but that word just doesn't exist in English, right? It's that concept that the thing that you know is true in Spanish, you know it's true and you can explain it in Spanish, right? But you can't figure it out in English. And yet it's still a truth, right? It's still true, it's still there, but you can't explain it, right? And so that, I think, is sort of how I grew up. It's obviously a huge part of who I am, and it's, I think, something that made me a good lawyer. I like to think it's making me a good judge. Like I said, I'm only a year into the district court, so we'll see how that pans out. But that's, to me, it's been a huge advantage, right, to have been the daughter of immigrants, and a huge advantage to have been bilingual and bicultural.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saimara Diaz. I am here as a summer law fellow for the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to hear your wonderful advice. I am a law student back in Puerto Rico, so next to Cuba, so we're closer on that front too.
Dos alas de la misma paloma, ¿no?
Exacto, de un ave dos alas. So my question for you is, what advice would you have for someone transitioning into the legal practice after law school or pursuing a work in the field of law in the areas you were?
So I was telling the law students, it's a long career, people. Right? It's 40, 50 years as a lawyer. So take it step by step. I had a great professor in law school who said, think of your career in 3-year chunks. Right? The first job isn't going to be your only job, especially now. Back maybe 30 years ago, people had their first job and that's the firm they stayed at, right? If that was the firm you started at, well, that was the firm you became partner at. Or if you were a government lawyer, you were always a government lawyer. That's just not true anymore. So think of what skill set you need to be the kind of lawyer you want to be. Think about whether that job is providing you that skill set. What are you learning from that experience? And don't overthink it too much, right? It's not, the first job is not your only job. It's just one job, right? And so as long as you're always at a place where you love your work and you feel like you're excelling, you're good. You're good. Once you feel you're no longer excelling there, or that you're no longer learning, or you no longer have a passion for it, then it's time to make a move. And sometimes you'll make a move in 3 years, sometimes you'll make it in 15, right? It's a long road. I know that first job is really stressful, right? Getting that first job and having that first job, and where that first job is as good as, your classmates. There's a lot of stress around that. Trust me, you'll be at your 20th law school reunion and nobody will remember what anybody's first job was.
Thank you.
Still another 2 or 3 questions. Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Fausto. I am from Kansas, and I am a rising college freshman at the University of Kansas. The question I had for you is, how did you go about finding your space or finding that seat at the table, not just in law school, but in your legal career?
That's a great question, because nobody's going to give you the chair, right? Like nobody's inviting you, right? You're going to have to find it yourself. And a little bit of what I said before, when you get a seat at the table, when you find your chair, like sit up in it, sit up in it. I think sometimes I slouched. I'd get to the chair and then I'd kind of slouch down. I'd sit up in it. I think you have to find things, and I've been saying this all day, something that you really love, right? Try to figure out what really brings you passion, what you care about. You're not going to excel at something you don't like to do, right? And people want to be around other people who are doing things with joy. My grandfather used to say que las cosas había que hacerlas con gusto, o no se hacían, right? That gusto. A great phrase, I don't know what the English translation. Nothing is quite gusto. It's just, I don't know what it is. But my grandfather used to say that all the time. So find that thing that calls to you, find that passion. It's not going to be the same thing for the rest of your life, probably not. But that's how you find your seat. And by the way, you may not always have a seat. That's okay. Right? You might be going through something, or you might need to dedicate time to something different. That's okay too. It's okay too.
Hi, my name is Ariel Segura. I'm from the Bronx in New York. And at least in my community and with my parents and, even with some of the educators in my own school building, there's a lot of resentment against, prosecutors and that just general area of law. Especially in my community, people would feel targeted. People just feel that, prosecutors aren't doing what they wants to do. And I wanted to ask you, as a woman of color, what do you think about these things? At least for me, I know that I'm interested in being a prosecutor, but these things, these comments from other people, they're kind of discouraging me partially, because it's just like, they're not wrong sometimes.
So you have to be a prosecutor. It's interesting. I was having lunch the other day with some people from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it is true that when I became an assistant United States attorney, my progressive friends thought it was great that I was going to be an AUSA. And my conservative friends thought it was great that I was going to be a prosecutor. We're living in a time now where, they were saying to me that their progressive friends are saying to them, I can't believe you're a prosecutor. And that their conservative friends are saying to them, I can't believe you're a prosecutor, right? I think it's a very difficult job to do right now. I will tell you that in our system of justice, for better and for worse, prosecutors yield an enormous amount of power. They really do. And that is why it is so important, right, that people from our communities are prosecutors, right? It's so important that people who are going to do the job well, be our prosecutors. You don't want those to be jobs that nobody wanted, right? Because of the decision making that has to be there. So much of what people say today too about prosecutors and about our legal system in general, they're saying it without any foundation, right? They're saying it without any basis. So to be someone who's in the system, right? If you could go back to your neighborhood and say, but I'm a prosecutor, right? And I can tell you that what I do every day, and when I prosecute cases, I do it with honor and they're meritorious. And yeah, maybe not every prosecutor is perfect. Not every cop is perfect. But the system isn't any better if the only people who are left to do it are the people who had no strong opinion about it, right? So you shouldn't feel discouraged. It is an incredible honor to be a prosecutor. It is truly an honor to do that. That doesn't mean you're going to agree with every decision a prosecutor makes. You may not even agree with everything you do as a prosecutor. Like, I look back at some cases I had and said, I do it differently now, right? But I know that it was important, especially when I was back in Miami, to have somebody in the room that had had my life experiences, right? We can't be out of the room, right? If we're not at the table, then no one is listening to our voice and no one's listening to our stories. And so these are complex issues, right? What you're hearing in your neighborhood, it's not that it's wrong, right? It's complex, right? These are complex issues, but you shouldn't be dissuaded. Those issues should encourage you, right, to participate in the system and to be part of the system. I obviously believe in our institutions very, very strongly, right? I have friends who don't. I have friends who think that you have to fight the institution. I have respect for that. That's fine. You can do that. But that wasn't my choice, right? Like my choice was to be part of our institutions, right? And that doesn't mean I left what I believed in, right? Or who I was outside the door. And that's not what the job requires either, right? I have a lot of friends, obviously, from my time at the U.S. Attorney's Office and my time at the Justice Department. And, and we talk about our work, even now, we talk about it all the time because, now you're seeing on the news all the time what people think prosecutors do. It's important to have people who can really speak to what a prosecutor really is, right? Don't let the TikTok and Snap, drown it out. Like, turn it off. I had to tell one of my daughter's friends today, like, please don't come and talk to me about a problem that you learned on TikTok. Like, just don't. And I know it's hard because this is your generation and that is where you're getting the news from. But consider your source, right? Consider your sources a little bit. So put the TikTok down, put the Snap down, maybe take an internship at the state attorney's office, right? Take an internship. You might hate it. You might think this is awful. But, before you become a prosecutor, why don't you spend a summer there and talk to people who are doing the job and who are doing the job in your neighborhood and see what they tell you, see what perspective they have on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I know you can't see me. Hi, my name is Natali Miguel. I'm a student at Florida International University. I've been here all summer interning. So my question to you regarding the previous question, I remember I would tell a professor that I had that my dream was to be a criminal defense attorney. And the first thing that they told me was sometimes the best way to defend someone is through the inside, through the prosecution. I wanted to ask you what your experience is with that and if you've ever related to that or had a case where you were finding yourself in that position.
I mean, look, one of the biggest cases I did as a prosecutor was a police corruption case where I had to dismiss the case in the middle of the trial. So the Miami Herald is covering your trial every day, and then midway trial, you got to dismiss it, right? I mean, prosecutors do have the unique obligation, right, of trying to protect the rights of the defendant. That being said, the system doesn't work without the representation of the defendant and without the protections that the Constitution through Gideon v. Wainwright gave us, right? So it doesn't, that's what the defense lawyer is there to do, to make sure that the prosecutor is doing the job, right? The defense lawyer has that unique responsibility. So, there are systems, right, all across the world where defendants don't have representation. I don't think those systems work better than ours, right? People need lawyers. And so it's not that you're not helping defendants when you're a prosecutor because you have an obligation to, but I think criminal defense work is an incredible public interest, an incredible calling. I'd love to see more women, right, do that work. I think it's important. I think at the federal public defender level, I think we see more women. I think it's harder when you start getting into private practice. You see less women. So I'd love to see you be a public defender and a defense lawyer. It's wonderful. It's a really, really, and talk about exciting and interesting, right? It's a really interesting and exciting career. So don't be discouraged if that's what you want to do.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Lorenzo, and I'm a counselor at HNBF. I'm also a rising 2L at FIU. And I have a question maybe on behalf of the students. They're participating in a mock trial on Saturday. Do you have, some are experienced, some are not so experienced, and I can already feel the nerves coming about. Do you have any advice for them, both experienced and non-experienced? I'm sure that they would appreciate it.
So you're only gonna get better by doing it, right? So look, you're in law school. No one is expecting you to be, Clarence Darrow here, right? Like you're in law school. You're learning.
Actually, they're high school students.
Oh, they're high school students. Listen, these are incredible opportunities. That's what it is, people. Like, you're learning. You are learning. I think it's very important in terms of like the stress and being nervous. That's you defeating yourself. Like if those nerves are hurting you, then why are you putting yourself down, right? Sometimes the nerves are good to the extent they encourage you, but take a deep breath, right? And know that every time you do it, you're going to be better, right? Every time I was in trial, even as a prosecutor, I always felt like after I sat down, that if I could get up and do it again, I could do it better. Give me one more chance, I could do it better. And every time I could do it better. And so imagine the advantage that you guys have that you're starting in high school to do it, right? So take a deep breath, enjoy it a little bit, really enjoy it a little bit. None of you are going to go to Harvard or not going to go to Harvard based on what happens this weekend, people, okay? Take a deep breath. Trust me. It's not good. It doesn't matter, right? Learn, listen to each other, and watch each other, right? One of the things that I think we're losing in the law, because I think we're also losing it in society a little bit, is listening. Listening, right? So if you're in that trial competition, listen to what the other people are saying. Listen to what they're doing, right? Learn from each other. I can't tell you how many times, even in my courtroom, I'll ask a lawyer a question, and I have no idea what they answered. Does that happen to you? Like, you ask a question, you're like, oh, that's an interesting fact. Not the question I asked, counsel. Or you'll have a lawyer get up, and I'm sitting there with that lawyer, and I'm going through these issues with this lawyer, right? And so that should be telegraphing to you what I think is important, because I've just gone back and forth with lawyer A on this issue. Opposing counsel gets up, and it's like, I haven't talked for the last 10 minutes. I'm like, did you not hear what I was asking that guy or that girl? Nobody's listening. Everybody just has their own recording, and they just want to hit play. Oh, I know what I want to say. Let me hit play. And nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. So, and I think that's part of our culture today, right? Everybody's just worried about what they're posting. Oh, I'm going to post this. It's not a conversation. It's a post, right? Practicing law is not posting, people, right? Practicing law is a conversation. And you're not really going to have a great conversation unless you listen to each other. So take the time and the opportunity while you're doing this competition to watch and to listen to what the other side is doing. Don't just hit play on whatever you practice. Listen. Listen, because it's an art that we're losing. And it's not just young people, because I'm telling you, the people who are appearing before me are people my age. And they're not listening to me. They're not listening to each other, right? And the great lawyers listen. Right? The great lawyers stand up and say, Judge, I don't have anything else to argue because they just heard me kill the other guy and they know where I'm going, right? You know, the good lawyers are like, oh, let me just address, Judge, what I heard you say over there. The good lawyers answer my question and then go off and tell me whatever they think, even if my question might be completely off the wall, right? And sometimes I wish I could tell lawyers, look, I'm asking this question. I know that my question is off the wall. But it's an issue that I found in a case, or it's something that's bothering me or bothering my law clerk, and I got to scratch it off my list of things to worry about. I know it's not, you know, the whole case. I get it, but I'm interested in this. Now pay attention to me. You'd be surprised how many times people like literally do not answer my questions. It's incredible. But I think it's an art that we're losing as a community, as a culture. So listen to each other, have fun, enjoy it. How fun to be in a high school trial competition. Oh my God.
I heard that the judge that oversees the mock trial goes out of, make sure it's not stressful.
Does he buy pizza too? Free pizza?
He personally does not.
Last question, final question. And then we're going to need to wrap up.
Hi, I'm Lucia. I'm from the Bronx, New York, and I'll be an incoming freshman at Princeton in the fall. My question...
A real group of underachievers.
My question for you is, what has been the best part of your career?
I wouldn't even know how to answer that, because I have loved my career, right? Like I loved being a lawyer, and I'm really enjoying being a judge. But I think if I were to say, like, you know, what I've loved the most about it is I've loved the public service part of it, and some of the things I did in private practice I thought, right, were public service, because when I was in private practice, I served on boards of organizations I really believed in. I donated to causes I really believed in. I gave my time, right, to causes I really believed in. So I think during the course of my career, my ability to contribute back to our democratic process, that's been a constant in different ways, but that's been a constant. And that, I think, is what has been the most fulfilling. And I think that is, in large part, being a daughter of immigrants, I felt like I had that obligation, right, to give back with my career and with my talent. And I think I've been able to do that. But I've had so much fun as a lawyer. I mean, judging isn't fun. It's different. It's a different thing. But as a lawyer, I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of great experiences, and I got to meet incredible people. right, through my practice. So I'm obviously a people person. I think most lawyers are, and if you're not, maybe you shouldn't go to law school. But I would say that constant thread of giving back to the fiber of our democratic process has been what I've enjoyed the most.
All right, perfect. So to wrap up, we'd just like to thank you. Your career serves as an inspiration not only to minorities, but as well as all legal professionals. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very, very much for having me. I love being here, right? I love seeing you all. Like, if I could switch seats with any of you, I would. And I tell you that just to say to you, you are just starting the most exciting parts of your life. Like, my life isn't that exciting anymore, right? Going to college, right? Going to law school. This is so exciting, right? Your life is beginning. How exciting. I'm just so excited for you. I could trade seats, I would. So enjoy it. You belong wherever you're at. Grow, right? Like, grow where you're planted. You're there for a reason. And so, like I said, enjoy it. Know that you belong where you are. And don't forget how you got there. Because, you know, a freshman at Princeton or a freshman at Columbia, there's a whole row of people behind you that not only do you have to keep the door open for them, sometimes you're going to have to go back through the threshold and grab somebody by the collar and help them through it, right? Not everybody's going to walk through the door. Some people are going to have to be kind of tugged along, and you are already in incredible positions of power to do that for other people, right? For those of you who are law students, you're in incredible positions of power for the high schoolers that are sitting here, right? So don't think that you have to wait to be that mentor, that you have to wait to make that difference for somebody, because you're already in that position. So I thank you again for having me.